Okay. Well, thank you, Shirley. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Joe. Thank you, first of all, on behalf of Chairman Royce and our Foreign Affairs Committee. Allow me to welcome you here today for this timely and important briefing and discussion. I look forward to hearing from all of you. I know that you have traveled from faraway places to be here today to have the opportunity to meet with me, with Chairman Royce, other members of our committee, and they'll be coming in and out to bring to our attention an issue I know that does not get all of the attention that it deserves, and I don't want to take up our valuable time together because I want to hear from you. I'll just say that you have a great team here with Joe and Shirley. This is a team effort, and they've done such great work on behalf of the Albanian American Civic League. They've got a wonderful reputation here in the United States Congress in a bipartisan manner. Both Republicans and Democrats support them, help them, and they've done this with great passion and a lot of expertise because it's a big world. There are a lot of important issues, and we depend on experts like all of you, led by Joe and Shirley, to let us know more detail about these issues. I've enjoyed working with them through the years, as Joe pointed out, on some of these issues that matter clearly, directly to you, and that means that they matter to us as well. So I take their advice very seriously and to heart, and their recommendations. So I look forward to hearing from you and them. I'd like to commend Macedonia for its national elections took place in April. According to the information that we have received, the elections were held efficiently in an orderly fashion. However, more needs to be done to reform the political parties and make campaign seasons more equitable for political groups. Even though Macedonia is one of the poorest countries in Europe, it has been able to achieve steady economic growth. We would like to have steady economic growth here in the United States. And in fact, the 2014 Heritage Report Index on Economic Freedom stated that Macedonia has improved in trade freedom, in business freedom, and its control of public spending. I don't think Congress has improved much with its control of public spending. So a few weeks ago, Shirley had shared with me a memo, which I believe you are here to discuss in greater detail. So I'm eager to hear your concerns and opinions regarding the current situation in Macedonia and what you think Congress can do to help resolve these issues. I know that Macedonia still wants to become a member of NATO, but that has not stopped them from joining our coalition in Afghanistan and in Iraq. So what a tremendous contribution for our efforts. And for my part, I will continue to work in Congress to strengthen the U.S. relationship with Albania, to support the efforts of the Albanian people to build a free society, a secure society, a more prosperous society for themselves and for your children. So with that being said, I welcome you. I look forward to hearing from all of you about what we can do here in the United States Congress to foster democratic reform, to improve civil society, and how can we increase trade between our nations. So Joe and Shirley, thank you for many years of friendship and cooperation on these important issues. Thank you very much to all of you for being here with us today. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Shirley.
Shirley's going to fill in between the lines now,
Yeah.
what you said.
I think that this is kind of interesting because the memo that you're referring to actually was something that I wrote in March, and things have now dramatically changed.
Tell
some
us.
of the
Oh,
information
thank you.
that you've received. And if you don't mind, I'm also going to
Yes.
look out
introduce
here so that it's simply not only a discussion between us, but this is, needless to say, very directed to you, in part because, as Joe pointed out, Ileana is one of the leaders in the foreign policy community in the United States and cares deeply about human rights issues, and that's really what we're about here. Now, one of the things I want to point out is that everyone right now in Washington is really focused on one thing, understandably so, and that's ISIS.
Yes.
And how are we going to respond to that? This has been a terrible summer when you think about the developments. All of Congress is focused on ISIS, it's focused on Gaza, it's focused on Ukraine. But actually, this is precisely when the United States needs to be focused on Macedonia and the Balkans, because the truth of the matter is that Macedonia is falling apart. It is becoming a dysfunctional country. And I want to go back just briefly to say that whenever the United States takes a backseat to Europe, we're in trouble. So some of the information you're getting is very clear to me where some of the sources are, and I'll tell you why. Because with the exception of the Clinton administration, and they had to be pushed, when they dropped NATO's bombs on Serbia, all of our administrations in our lifetime have been taking a backseat to Europe, being involved in a policy of appeasement and containment, which does not work. And we always know when we take a backseat to Europe, ultimately because they can't, by virtue of their 28-member nation status, all having divergent views, it doesn't work. Even now we have 5 of those nations who don't recognize the independence of Kosovo. So it's always been the House Committee on Foreign Affairs. It's been Congressman Gilman, Lantos, Biden, Hyde, you, Dana Rohrabacher, quite explicitly, who made it possible, working with us in part, our information, and having more than one hearing over time, that led to peace in the region up to a certain point and the independence of Kosovo. Unfortunately, we are now back to where we kind of all began. We know that the bombs were dropped and it stopped the war finally, Slobodan Milosevic's genocidal march across Europe for a decade. Then, what happens in 2001? Macedonia erupts, and there's a great, fanfare about who was really responsible. It took us a year to convince state and the National Security Council that it wasn't Albanians who actually initiated this. It was actually coming from the ethnic Macedonian Slav ruling party, and we tried to even speak with them to say, don't move this into a military conflict. This can be resolved diplomatically, but unfortunately, no one anywhere was paying attention. So it took less than a year, but finally we had what was called the Ohrid Framework Agreement, signed by the United States and other leading members of NATO with both the Albanian political leadership and the Macedonian political leadership. The problem is that Ohrid in 2001, when it was signed in August, only little tiny portions of it have actually materialized. So that you have an ongoing situation of incredible racism and lack of human rights, terrible, criminal justice system, all on the backs of the Albanian people principally, even though there's not really one dominant ethnic group in Macedonia, but the Macedonian Slavs are in power. Now, we're 13 years after Ohrid, and what has been happening? The EU has been sitting there, wringing their hands and putting out fires when the conflict happened. We've frankly been doing the same thing. We've all been, the State Department, been hiding behind, oh, we have Ohrid. Oh, we have, implementation. Oh, certain things have happened. Oh, Albanians are now able to hold up their flag or speak their language in certain, public settings. But in fact, there has hardly been any implementation of great proportion. Certainly not any that would solve the root problems of the conflict. And all of this erupted this summer when I said you didn't know this yet because I hadn't had a chance. This document that I've just released, Roland Joni and I wrote it, expert in international law, will be coming out on Open Democracy quite soon. It's being published there. And it was the canary in the mine in July when, after 2 years, try this, with secret trials. This is even against, Macedonia has never done this before. Secret trials, one, protected witness, no evidence. 6 Albanians were given life imprisonment for the alleged murder of 5 ethnic Macedonian fishermen. It was a spark plug. Albanians, thousands raced into the streets in the capital of Skopje. They then, raced into the streets in all of the Western European capitals. Then in the United States, although a little bit smaller because, most people aren't aware of what's happening in the region here, in Australia, it went on and on and on. And that's when it became clear that we were at a terrible turning point. And the turning point that we're in is coupled by another problem that the Albanian community needs to recognize, I feel, and so does everyone dealing with the region. In that period, not only did the Western powers hide behind the Ohrid Framework Agreement saying, oh, we're doing something, they ignored the fact that both the leading ethnic Macedonian party and ethnic Albanian party are totally corrupt. They're lining their pockets. They're speaking the words of democracy. That's how you get so much information. And they're using nationalist rhetoric with their particular ethnic groups to increase levels of conflict. But then they're in partnership. So they have now been in power for 10 years. And unfortunately, we have looked the other way too consistently. In our State Department has, unfortunately, I feel sad about this. It's not reflected elsewhere, and it's not everyone in state, by the way. We all know this. But we need a reset button there because there's been too much of an orientation of let's just have stability. Stability at all costs.
That's terrible.
And it is. And we know now in the 21st century this can no longer work. Human rights now has to come to the forefront.
Push a policy.
And what we especially want to do is ask for the United States to now pay attention because we're in danger. And I'll tell you why we're in danger. Macedonia is in line to enter NATO and enter the EU. And I'm very curious about how this can happen given the terrible conditions in which non-ethnic Macedonians are being treated, but also even many ethnic Macedonians, because we have all through the region now a power elite holding on to most of the benefits.
And a
corrupt power elite. And why, oh why, oh why, has the United States and the EU, have Washington and Brussels thought they could look the other way as if nothing, was about to emerge. And by the way, another interesting point you had to make when you said that economically they're sound. Truth of the matter is, that was what the economists and what everyone was saying. But guess what happened? They borrowed $1 billion from the EU and they have spent it on recreating the capital of Skopje. It's called Skopje 2014.
With all the needs.
With all the needs, right? And it's pictures from mythological, history, trying to create this picture, and it's all linked to ethnic Macedonians when they are not the only leading, ethnic group in the country. So I think it's crucially important.
That is good and valuable.
Yeah, that we make sure they don't enter until there are changes. And then finally, the other issue of importance that literally is heartbreaking. We all know, anyone here who's in the Albanian American Civic League or who's studied the Albanian history, and you know this definitely, I know. Albanians have been secular Muslims, Orthodox Christians, Roman Catholics, and some Jews living in harmony for centuries. They were, like Sarajevo, the ideal. It's Ramadan, you have Christians going to the celebration. You have, Christmas Eve and all the Muslims are there. Now, what has happened in Macedonia, therefore, and it's starting to move into Kosovo, is heartbreaking. With all the money that has been taken from the people, the Wahhabi form of Islam has been encroaching in largely through Saudi Arabia.
So dangerous.
For the first time, mosques are being built that there were none.
Yes.
For the first time, women, especially those whose husbands died in the war and are incredibly poor, are being approached, here, take this money, but you have to wear the veil. You have to go to the mosque. This never existed before. Now, Albanians, in addition to having religious harmony over centuries, also are the most pro-American ethnic group in
Yes.
the region, if not in all of Europe. We should not allow them to be forced into a situation where more and more people now look to the east, get involved in a form of Islam that never existed in Albanian lands, and now start to march into and potentially connect with some of the worst extreme forces that are emerging. And finally, I would say something else we also cannot overlook, and we have for a long time, and that's the role of Russia. Russia has always, since the Soviet Union has been, technically disbanded, with Putin now
Yes.
wanting to,
Mother
reemerge.
Russia.
It's a problem for two reasons. What were the two regions that they most want to have control over and lost? The Middle East and the so-called Balkans, Southeast Europe. They themselves have been actively involved in some of the disintegration we're now seeing. So the time has arrived, and this is the key moment when I'm hoping that we can have a different kind of foreign policy, one that isn't going to be just putting fires out, one that isn't going to be muddling
Proactive
through,
rather than
that becomes
crisis to
proactive.
crisis.
Exactly. And now, finally, turns the tide. We must insist that until that Oak-Ridge Agreement does actually have to be implemented. Otherwise, it will not be if, it will just be a matter of when we have war again. Thank you.
Thank
We are going to,
Thank you. That was a wonderful explanation.
we will be visiting the State Department this afternoon.
And that,
And
what
this
were your
delegation's
message?
coming. Yes, we want to be sure they know directly from us as Albanian Americans and people who were born there, who have families there today, what is really going on, because they're not getting that message. So that's important. The other thing that you have to know, we talked about no ethnic group dominating. Albanians believe they're at least 40% of the population. Now, the other 60%.
Dana.
Good to see you,
Congressman
Congressman
Dana Rohrabacher. Come on up here, Dana. Come on up here.
Sit on the other side of Shirley.
We might be called for votes, so let's
Yeah,
get Dana.
yeah, we want to hear, yeah.
But they're gonna be speaking with the State Department, Joe was just saying, and Shirley just gave a great overview of what the situation is. And you were heralded as one of their heroes, so live up to those words. Dana.
So one of the biggest problems that Albanians have is that the government, controlled by the Slavs, refuses to have an independently homogenous census. So for 20 years, we have not been able to get the real numbers. So, and they're afraid to give you the real numbers because Albanians believe they may be half that population. So what do you have in a situation where you have Slavs? Many of those Slavs are not Macedonian Slavs. They're Serbian and Bulgarian. So in fact, Albanians are probably the largest plurality in the country.
So we need census
Yes.
numbers.
Yeah, his is a short period of time, so
Thank you.
if
Dana
you don't mind, Joe,
Rohrabacher.
I've got to hand it.
Thank you.
Subcommittee chair. Thank you, Dana. They
Well-
love you.
Well, they don't really love me. What they love
He loves
is
his words.
what they really love is the fact that I believe in certain principles and we share those values. I've always and what's really it's like I've always said that for example when it came to Kosovo, I wasn't supporting Kosovo's right and the people there and their right to have their own country because I like Albanians. I was doing it because the people of Kosovo have a right to determine their self-determination. And whatever race or religion or ethnic background people have, they have that right. It's part of our Declaration of Independence. And that thus, people who live in whatever country it is, they are endowed by God, not the government, with the rights of determining freedom and a self-determination for their people. And it seems to me that the Albanian people are among perhaps the most oppressed in this angle, in that you've got a group of people who share a common language and tradition and values and ethnic background, and yet all over the world they've been split apart, pushed over here and there. And during the colonial era, we had an intentional splitting up of the Albanian community to weaken its influence on that part of Europe. And so there are certain groups, and I see no reason why the United States should be the enforcer of these type of divisions that were given to us by colonialists 150 years ago or 200 years ago. And so I'm open-minded towards seeing what we can do consistent with our own Declaration of Independence and as consistent with the rights of these people. There it is.
Yay! Dana, I just basically gave an overview of the situation we find ourselves in right now, and I'll just say briefly that we are now at a turning point. Macedonia is falling apart. The potential for future conflict is really quite large, especially after this summer's massive protests when 6 Albanians were sentenced to life in prison after a secret trial that went on for 2 years. Known by the media there as the Monstra case, literally meaning monster. And this is a great time. You have been very vocal about this, and we, all of us, have appreciated this tremendously, and I know Ileana agrees with this, that the State Department has consistently been involved in appeasement and engagement in containment, in the region for many, many years. Stability at all costs, but absent, justice. And
Well, they don't want. There is a consensus among State Department and government officials and the United Nations and all of the quote establishment of the world believes that the one principle they believe in is the principle of you cannot change a border, even though we know those borders were created by power mongers and colonialists who had no right to chart the destiny of many different people. And for example, where most of you know that I've offered this alternative in Kosovo, so that in the northern part of Kosovo you have a river, and on the other side of that river you have 90% Serbs. They should not be part of Kosovo if they don't want to be part of Kosovo. But then again, there's another valley that goes into Serbia in which 70–80% of the people there are Kosovars. And I have proposed that they just switch the boundaries so that the valley becomes part of Kosovo and the north of the river becomes part of Serbia. But, oh no, you can't change the border. You can't. Well, you know what? As we progress in humankind, if things don't evolve, they reach breaking points. What you're talking about, it sounds like there's a breaking point that you're about to make in Macedonia, because if you just let these things just not mold with the times and mold with the populations, you're going to have violence and you're going to have problems that you wouldn't have if you could just make sure that let people have the right to determine their destiny, and it will be less violence, not more.
yes, I think we're at a turning point now, I think, because the sovereignty excuse isn't necessarily going to work. I think there are good people in the State Department who now see that we are in trouble, and they do recognize the second, third-class citizenship of Albanians, throughout the region. So that's why I'm hoping that the two of you and like-minded leaders in foreign policy begin to re-engage this discussion before it blows up, and especially in light of ISIS and the push of the Wahhabi form of Islam into the region. I don't want to continue because I spoke at length, and I'll give you some more background at another point, but I want to give this now to some of our members.
But I think we have to realize, Dana, that it's not Albanians that are looking to change borders. What they're looking for is equality. They're looking for economic equality. If you saw the unemployment rates in Kosovo, in Preševa, it's 90%. Don't forget, the largest populations in Europe are Albanians. Why? Because they have large families. Now, these kids are going to school. Not only can't they get jobs, they're not allowed to get visas to travel out of Kosovo. You're talking about building up such tension right now, and I think the United States is oblivious to this. You've got 40% unemployment minimum in Kosovo among the youth. You've got in Albania, the same thing. You've got 90% in Preševa. In Macedonia, forget it. Now the government's giving a few government jobs, but basically, I found out from somebody, the jobs they're given to Albanians are through the Albanian party, which is corrupt, and they're saying, just take the money, stay back, you don't have to even work. That's not dignity. That means they're controlling artificially the government to keep repressing the Albanian people. It's happening all over the Balkans. And the corruption has to stop. And it's corrupt everywhere. In Albania, Kosovo, Serbia, Macedonia, Montenegro. You're going to hear a little from Montenegro. And we're saying, oh, let Europe take care of it. Europe is not going to take care of it. They got their own problems. America has to take care of it, like we did in Kosovo. Thank you.
By the way, one of the things we can do in relation to that, and it's very, very, very easily done, both Albanians in Kosovo and Bosnians, they're the only people that aren't allowed to travel. There is no visa liberalization. So key people that really have a lot to give and are invited to international, conferences on all sorts of topics.
Give the example you just, she's
Yeah,
working with a woman now.
I'm working with somebody with a PhD from the United States, supposed to be in Edinburgh, can't get to Edinburgh because she's not getting her visa approved. And she's definitely coming back. She runs an entire, section of the university. So again, this is something the U.S. needs to think about when you have the most pro-U.S. population. What's happening? They can go to Turkey anytime. They can go east. And those people who really feel compromised, we've already seen it by the situation, are now accepting money from groups in the Islamist extreme point simply to survive.
Well, we've
it's
got a
going on.
series of votes.
Yeah,
Let's
and
just
I
go around
I was going to
and
say, now,
introduce
I know
everybody. Why don't
that,
you stand up and walk
well,
with them?
Right,
I wanted
Chairman
to
Royce-
start.
Chairman Royce is right now on the House floor meditating
Right.
the debate on Ukraine. He's not here now. He's going to hopefully drop by before the end of the meeting. But that's
Yeah. I wanted to, if it's okay, there are a few
Pass
people
the
that have
mic.
agreed to speak, and Ramazan ideally was going to have a few comments, and then please introduce yourself as we go along here.
Macedonia originally, president from Wisconsin.
Correct. Ramazan Haidini. I was born in Macedonia, Kičevo. And basically, I emigrated here because of oppression, and I was sort of politically getting staged to be arrested when I was right after my high school. I just wanted to bring to the attention the Bureau of Statistics or Department of Statistics in Macedonia, which plays crucial role in hiding facts as they are in the ground, which they are responsible for the census, or they are responsible giving the proportion percentage number of population or the employment and in different areas, according to their, well, first of all, on that department, there is not even a single Albanian working in the census department. Not a single one. And this is done in purpose because so the Albanians will not know the exact facts. What is Macedonian government has been hiding the number of the population of the Albanians by purpose. Officially, they state that there is 25.1% Albanians in Macedonia. But the actual number, which even European countries pretty much know the facts on the ground, it's supposed to be around 38-40%. By doing this, they actually misrepresenting. They want the government of Macedonia wants the Albanians to be misrepresented in all spheres of life, in employment and in representation. For example, like an average Albanian deputy in the parliament equals to 30,000 votes. Average Macedonian, Slav Macedonian, equals 3,000 votes. So this is the other side. If you study things, will show you really where and how is massive discrimination and kept lit by the government itself. And these are things that has to come up to light, and we should work to end this, because this is where everything starts.
We only have 2 minutes. I want you, if you all don't
Thank you
mind,
very
we'll all
much.
have a chance to.
Thank
say-
you, thank you for listening.
But I also want, yeah, that information is right on. Everyone's going to get a chance to talk, but before you leave, I would like Destan Aliu to tell about an experience as an American that was quite.
Okay, I gotta go very fast. I appreciate you being here with us. Thank you. My name is Destin Aliu.
Maybe we can hear from, warming them up for you. Come on over here, let's have that microphone, Shirley. Shirley, you can.
Yes, pass it down. And then,
Thank you, Ed.
Have you already voted?
We're doing fine.
I have not voted. No.
Chairman Royce has a district right next to, I think, Dana's, right?
That is right.
Ed?
And
Oh, no, it's just, all it has to do is sit down. You don't even have to do a thing with it. What's great is it works for you.
I wanted to just welcome our guests here from Albania and share with you
Macedonia.
and Macedonia
Kosovo and
and
Montenegro.
Kosovo and Montenegro.
They're
And
ethnic Albanians.
we want to make sure we protect the rights of ethnic Albanians all over the world, including New York. But I know they're well protected. I know they're well protected in New York because Elliot Engel has a lot of Albanians in his district, and you all know Elliot Engel. I was going to say that the United States has a major role in this because we have some challenges ahead of us. One is a resurgent Russia. So we want to make certain that in the middle of all of this, we don't end up with the rights of Albanians encroached upon. Another problem for Albanians is what is coming out of some of these DioGuardi schools funded by some prominent families, like the Bin Laden family, out of the Gulf states. And it's churning up a very radical adversarial interpretation. What they're trying to do is replace indigenous Muslim culture around the world with a viewpoint which is foreign to the history. And it is creating a problem for some of my friends in the Albanian Muslim community, and I don't doubt in your region for some problems there as well. And they've asked our help in trying to confront this. And as they say, first order of business, make certain that ISIL, that we bring together the international community, put a stop to ISIL. The other thing I hear is the most important issue for reform in the former Soviet states and in Eastern Europe. What can the United States help do to push for and bring about the economic reforms, anti-corruption reforms that are really going to bring foreign investment in and create economic growth? And that's another area where on our committee we're trying to do more. Congressman Rohrbacher chairs the subcommittee that is focused upon this part of the world and Europe and Russia and this region. And we are committed to working together in order to make certain that those reforms go through and in order to provide a little leverage to help the governments bring about the necessary changes legislatively that must go forward if we're going to see the kind of economic growth and opportunity we want to see for the next generation of young ethnic Albanians all over the world. With that said, maybe we could open to any questions that we should answer.
That was a
before
very
the
good
vote.
statement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How many minutes do we have left for the vote?
Probably about 7.
Tell us when it's 5.
Okay. I actually, if you don't mind, would like, we were having certain people in our group after Joe and I made a major presentation on this that have particular experiences that speak to some of what you just raised. And if that's okay, we'd like to continue.
Yes.
And if anybody, you have to wait for this.